The new Tarkov wipe just got a whole lot better with some of the changes that BFG have implemented with the latest kind of hotfix, and of course answering some of the calls from the player base with some of the negativity that has been going on surrounding the wipe, which has definitely solved at least some of the issues, but there are still one main issue that I think people are generally fed up of. But with that being said, what have they actually done? Well, if you go into the game right now, so as of the upload of this video, and we go over to our tasks, we can now actually have tasks. I think this was probably one of the biggest letdowns from the yesterday, and of course up until this point, whereby the tasks in the game were just not available for people to complete, which felt kind of like the game was empty. There was nothing to really do when you did jump into the game, which definitely sucks when you're trying to, you know, get hyped about the game, really excited about playing a more hardcore style wipe. I actually like the idea. Unfortunately, I think they executed it poorly at the beginning, so hopefully people will jump back in if they've got a little bit bored or whatever, but now the tasks are back. But there's two other things that BSG have actually done. And that is that if, for example, we go in and let me just put some stuff on my guy and we jump in with some items, you know, what we typically found was that we went in, and if you go ahead and try and insure your gear, you were paying like 500,000 rubles for literally the most basic gear in the game. However, they did supposedly reduce the insurance cost, but it doesn't seem like it is. I mean, 722,000 rubles to literally insure 3 pieces of gear. This is something that they said they have reduced, at least that's what they said, but it doesn't appear like it's actually happened in the game, which, I mean, hello? Either way, 722,000 rubles means you are not really ever going to insure your gear, because all of this gear is not worth 722,000. It's probably not even worth 400,000, and it's probably not even worth 300,000. So there's definitely no point insuring your gear right now, especially with that. But there's one extra thing, is that if you do decide that you want to play on a SCAV, the SCAV cooldown timer has been reduced significantly from what it previously was. I mean, I was waiting like an hour and 10 minutes or something like that in order to play a SCAV again, which was just kind of a bit of a letdown. You know, maybe you run out of gear or whatever, and then you simply cannot really do anything. Maybe you literally have no weapons left, and you're having to run in with an axe on your PMC, which is of course not the greatest in the world. So they have managed to reduce the SCAV cooldown timer, so you can of course jump into your SCAV raids and be able to jump into them much quicker. But there's still one big issue, and the biggest issue I think from this wipe and what's currently going on is the fact that there is of course the issue with transiting. Now transiting, I like the idea of transiting, but the thing is that I think that they've done it in the wrong way. So for those of you that don't know, who haven't played the wipe, I mean, if you've been living under a rock or haven't heard anyone else talk about it, but the main issue is that when you transit from a location, say from customs to interchange, for example, everyone spawns around the same sort of area, meaning that all of the PMC spawn points are basically taken up by players. Every single one that is close to the transit location, meaning you can basically walk about 2 meters in front of you from spawn and instantly be met with, you know, 2, 3, 4 different groups of PMCs. And of course, some of them can be squads of, you know, 3, 4 players in the game, which, you know, if you're a solo player is very, very difficult for you to ever deal with, even as like one of the best players in the game. You know, dealing with 4 people all at the exact same time, knowing exactly where you are in a position that is not particularly useful to you, very problematic in terms of completing stuff. And that is the main issue with transit. But I think there is a way to make it much better, is that once you've transited, I think that should then unlock that map for you to be able to go in and spawn in as a normal player, at least for a set period of time. Say you can play that map for an hour, and then you have to go back in and you have to transit again, and then you can play that map again for an hour, and without having to actually go in and transit. So I think that would be a solution, at least temporarily, because at the moment it's just really not an ideal situation. Otherwise, if you do transit in, they just remove the whole nearby transit location so that you don't spawn spawn near where the actual transit is and you would spawn as normal within the raids. I mean, this is something that they could quite easily do. It has been what it was in the past. So hopefully they'll do something about where you're actually positioned when you spawn in on the transit. It's the biggest thing. I think that is annoying players because they're restricted on the maps that they can play. And of course, especially now with the introduction of the traders, it's going to make certain maps even worse because everyone's trying to jump in and play, for example, woods. So everyone's going to be transiting from the maps into woods, and you're going to find that it's going to be even worse when you do spawn in because it will be guaranteed lots of people within that said map because everyone's trying to do all of the early game tasks. But that's pretty much it in terms of what's come out, what has actually come into the game. I'm very happy that they have introduced the task finally, and I think that this was definitely a positive change. I think it was one of the sticking points for a reason to play the game and level up and everything like that. I haven't played a huge amount, about 9 raids, 10 raids, something like that, but I got bored quite easily when playing because it was just literally loot simulator of just grabbing up gear and items and stuff that you're going to use for your hideout. But generally, hopefully that gives you an indication of what's coming. I would definitely hop on now. It's much better, but of course there's still the transit issue. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, stay tuned for some more videos, especially if you are trying to get your hands on some of those hideout items. I have a really good loot run that will be coming out later today that you can do on a SCAV, that you can do on a PMC, and it's going to net you a ton of those valuable hideout items that are very difficult to get, and it's a very simple run with relative ease to actually do. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe down below, like the video if you did, and of course if you want to support the channel even further, you can of course join as a channel member. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.